Good morning. Glad that you're with us today. We had a great first service today. I'm glad you're at this one. And this one, maybe we're all more awake. I don't know. I took Barbara to the airport really early this morning. So early that she's actually in a worship service in Albuquerque right now. That is early if you get up for that, right? So glad that you're here with us. And there's so much going on. We also have several men that are gone to a retreat this weekend, and we are so thankful that there are so many things to help people get involved, to learn, to be closer to God and closer to each other. This is a good place, and if you are a guest, I hope this becomes your home. This morning we're starting a new series, and I told you one was coming, but one of the blessings that I get here is that I get to go somewhere every year, and I work on sermons, but I work on sermons about the place where I am. So I've done a series on Chicago, and I've done a series on Boston and New England and Philadelphia, and so the one this year, as you will see, is called Notes from NOLA, which means I was in New Orleans. And it's a little bit shorter series than some in the past, but I hope some of these things will make sense to you today. That what I do basically when I go, and Barbara goes with me, but I walk around, I look at things, I observe things, I try to come up with things that are as common that you have seen and you have been a part of and you know of, and then also those obscure things that you might not even know if you have lived in one of those cities, particularly New Orleans through this series. And so today we will be thinking about that. For the next few weeks we'll be thinking about notes from New Orleans. But before we get to New Orleans, I want to take us to another place first, okay? And so I want you to see this next slide. Do you know this man? Matter of fact, I'm so interested to know, I'm actually going to ask you to raise your hand if you recognize this man. All right, there are some of you that do. This, my left, your right. More people know over here than on the other side, but a few of you know. So this is Ronaldo, and believe it or not, the greatest soccer player right now, I guess we would say in the world, or a football player in the world. And so when you take all of his social media and his combined number of people that follow him, he has 1 billion combined followers on social media. And so for those of you who claim, oh, I know pretty much everything about the world, and you don't know the most recognizable man in the world, you got some things to do this afternoon. Don't Google him during the service. You can do that this afternoon, okay? And now I follow him because I've been working on this sermon. This idea of the influence that he and his family carries because of their social influence, because of his soccer ability, and people tell me he's good looking, but actually I thought he kind of looked a lot like me. So I'm just saying he does. So the hair, the teeth, everything is the same, right? But today we are going to talk about this idea of social influencers. When we were in New Orleans, we stayed in a beautiful place. We stayed in a bed and breakfast that was in the Garden District. For those of you who know that part of New Orleans, we stayed in an old house, an old building. It had been something along the time, and it was built like in 1840, and they have added water and they have added electricity, but really I don't think they've done much since 1840. And so it was a very quaint, honestly, a wonderful place to stay, except for like 20 stairs to go up with your suitcases. Except for that, it was great. We really enjoyed it. But every day, like we always do, or almost every day, we call our girls to see how they're doing and have to see how our little granddaughter is doing and how Emma is doing in Oklahoma, Annabeth in New Mexico. And one night, we were talking to Emma, who's in Oklahoma, our youngest daughter. She said, well, if you're in New Orleans, you have got to go see Yvonne LaFleur. And I said, I'm thinking, well, what is that? I have no idea. I think, is it a restaurant? Is it food? What is it, She said, well, she's a social influencer. You need to go see Yvonne LaFleur. I said, what are you talking about? So she said, she has this dress shop, and she said it's just full of material, and it's full of dresses, and I just watch her on Instagram all the time. She is 78 years old. She has over 250,000 followers on Instagram. She is for real. And so Yvonne is with a Y. And so I thought as we got off the phone, I am not going to a dress shop. Well, the next thing I know, there we are. And so we found her place. It is not in the tourist area. It is in another part of New Orleans, a very nice, beautiful part of New Orleans, as most of it is. And we get over to this shop and we walk in, and it is true. It is full of material and full of beautiful dresses and full of perfume, where she owned or owns a perfume factory in New York. And so we're going through it, and I see her. And I actually say to Barbara, look, that's Yvonne LaFleur over there. Because after all, I've known of her now for like 8 hours or something. But that's her. And I thought, that was fun. We could tell Emma that we saw her. And then she comes over to us. Excuse me, may I help you? Well, one thing I did learn while we were there is you're not getting out of the store without buying something. So we bought a little bit of perfume as we were there, and had a great conversation with her. And I said, Barbara, we got to take your picture with her. And so we did. And then Barbara said, just delete that picture afterwards. I'm not wearing the right clothes. I'm not wearing the right makeup for this. So now that she is out of town, I've decided to use it in a sermon. So it was really interesting, honestly interesting to talk to this woman and talk about a subject I know nothing about, but what was behind it all. And so I asked Emma, what made her influential to you? What is it that's important about her that you like? And she said, well, it's things like she has this quiet confidence. She is very sure of herself, but she does not come at you forcefully, but she knows herself. I also realized she probably just got like 800 new followers during the service. But she has this quiet confidence. She has a relaxing voice. As you know, Emma spends much of her day as an attorney in court, and she says, when I go home in the evening, sometimes I just like to listen to her voice as she talks. And she talks about what kind of gloves you might wear to a ball, and she talks about what kind of dress you would wear to a wedding, or you might wear out when you're out with friends. And she just has this very calm voice, and she said, I love the relaxing voice, and that she is authentically interested in her product. She loves dresses. She loves dressing up, and she loves helping people with that. Now, here's another thing. Emma didn't say this one, but this is another thing. She has a consistent presence on social media. Because I now follow her, and I follow Ronaldo as well. I'm very confusing to the algorithms. And so she is always on. She is always, seems like she pops up once or twice, 3 times a day. There's Yvonne LaFleur, and I always say in my head, well, I met her one time. And just keep going. I don't usually stop to watch because I don't really always understand. And so I keep going. All of these things are so interesting in what can make a person influential. Now, sometimes social media gets a negative name, and it should. Sometimes a lot of things on social media are bad. We all know that. And there are more sermons about the evils of social media than there are sermons of the positive side. But God called us to be social influencers as well. Sometimes we don't think of it that way. What in the world are you talking about? Well, if you go back to the most famous sermon Jesus ever preached, the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 5, right up there, close to the beginning of it, in verses 14 through 16, this is what Jesus said to people who are in his kingdom, what we would call Christians, disciples, us. To people who are going to be in the kingdom of God, this is what you're supposed to look like. You are the light of the world, a city situated on a hill that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, but rather they put it on a lampstand, and it gives light for all who are in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Wow, that's a powerful passage, isn't it? And he's telling us what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be the influence. If you are walking around in the dark and you're out in the country somewhere and you see a light, that light will influence you probably to go toward it because you're trying to find help or safety. And so he says, you are the light of the world. You are the thing that is supposed to be influencing this world rather than having the world influence you or even influence the church or the kingdom, we may say. It is us that are to be the lights of the world. And then people are supposed to see our good works. We always want to hide, and sometimes hiding good works is a good thing. But there is also a time to show our good works, not so people can say how good we are, but so that people will glorify your Father in heaven, and they will give God praise. Now, understand this. If I'm the light, if I am not around the dark, I can't be the light. I don't know if you noticed this, but there is a word not on the screen today just to see if you didn't catch it, okay? That's all I'm doing. No, I just flat missed it here. But if I am not around the dark, I can't be the light. Now, I can be the light. I just won't be doing much good whenever I'm just with light. The purpose of light is to be in the dark. Now, this also seems a little bit counter to us, right? Because one of the things, with our daughters, we wanted them to have good friends, evil companions, corrupt good morals. We want them to have good friends. We want you to come to church and make good friends. We want you to go to our Bible classes, make good friends, be around positive people. Absolutely, we want that. But at the same time, when you need to spend some time with people who are not in the light, but people who are in the dark. That may be when you go to school tomorrow morning. It may be when you go to work tomorrow morning. That you are around people that are in darkness and maybe they don't even realize it. They're stumbling through life. Maybe they even think they like the darkness. But you are to be light in the way that we treat other people and the things that we stand for the morals and ethics that we have, for the care in our hearts, and obviously for the God that we worship. That we are to be the light of the world in a dark world. If we keep all of our light in this room and think, wow, we're really wonderful people, but no one from the outside ever comes in, how will they ever see the light? This is almost sometimes like our basket or our bushel basket that we put over the top of us. And so we have to take it off so that that light can be seen. Now, he goes on in this passage where the verse just before what we read, verse 13 of Matthew chapter 5, and Jesus says this, a different illustration. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt should lose its taste, how can it be made salty? It's no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are what gives the world flavor, and you are what preserves the world. You are what gives this world flavor, and if all the salt stays in one place, it doesn't do its job, right? There is a purpose for salt. It preserves meat, for example, but also it gives flavor to the world. Now, when I was writing this sermon, and I write lots of little notes and things around, I decided to put on the screen today literally a note that I put in my little book I write in about these things, and this is it. Could that, and it's on the screen here, could that be why we are sometimes shaken? If I am the salt of the world, maybe what God is trying to do is say, David, get out of your comfort zone. David, show people here at the hospital how you handle trauma. In the name of Christ, how you handle trauma, not just the way you do it on your own. David, be around people and show them how you handle joy whenever good things happen to you. Maybe that's part of what's going on because we're to be the salt of the earth and not to just stay in a big clump or to stay in the cupboard, but we're to be out there with people and saying, this Jesus has changed my life. He has changed my way of thinking. He has changed my heart, and He can change yours. How can you be so confident in such a difficult time when it seems like the world is falling apart? How can you do that? Because Jesus has said, I am the light of the world. That Jesus has said that He is the rock. That Jesus is those things. And He says, I'm going to call you home and you're going to see me in the sky. And you're going to be with me forever. That there is a better day coming. And only if I am among other people that don't know Jesus, will they ever understand that kind of confidence? That doesn't mean that I'm happy about what may happen to my body or what may happen to this country or what happens to the world. But there is still a confidence that I have because of Jesus. We are to be the influencers of the world rather than letting the world do all the influencing on us. In Romans chapter 12, verse 2, the Apostle Paul there said, "Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may discern what is good, pleasing, and the perfect will of God." Wow, that's strong, isn't it? Don't conform to the world. But it's so hard not to conform to the world because I want to be like everybody else. It is comfortable to conform to the world. Because when I conform, then I'm like everybody else and people like me. I don't have any resistance against me. I'm invited places. People like me. They pat me on the back. But that is not what we were called to be as Christians. We were called to be people who follow God, which is really counterculture, rather than the world. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to go to the funeral of Robert Miranda, Bob Miranda, as we called him here. Bob was a missionary all throughout Latin America, and for many years, he was a part of the Memorial congregation, sponsored by Memorial, and a wonderful man, did so much work with his wife, Sybil, that passed away, and then with Jane, who he married later. Did so much work throughout all of South America and then into Mexico and Central America. And what was so striking to me was listening to his grandchildren speak. I didn't get to be there for the whole service because I had a funeral service that I was doing later in the afternoon, but what I heard was incredible. His grandchildren stood up and spoke one by one. And I remember what one of them said. He said, when I was a young man, like maybe 14, 15 years old, he said, I went on a mission trip with my grandparents. Incidentally, all the grandchildren went on mission trips with their grandparents. It wasn't just going on a fun trip. It wasn't just going to an amusement park. It wasn't just going to work with them. It was going to like Colombia or Ecuador or Honduras, different countries they named. But he said, we were in Colombia. And he said, there I was, and my grandfather would preach in the church building, had obviously people in it. And as soon as it was over and it was time for us to leave, he said we got into a car, and we got into the back seat, and someone else was driving. And he said we had 3 hours to get to the next town, to the next church where he was going to preach. And he said what my grandfather always did was he would say, you need to have a pad of paper so you can be writing. You need to be taking notes all the time about the sermons. And so as soon as they got into the car for the 3-hour drive, Bob, the grandfather, Lolo as he was known, started teaching a lesson to them, to the boys. And so he just started teaching. Are you taking notes? Yes, I am. Let me see your notes. Here are my notes. Okay, those look good. Keep writing. And so he taught the whole time until they got to the church building in the town 3 hours away. And then he said to his grandson, do you have your notes? Yes, I do. He said, good, because you're preaching now. And he was not joking. And he stood up and he preached as a teenager, just right there. I don't know what everyone thought about it. The audience thought about it, but you know what? There was a young man whose life was changed because of the influence of his grandfather, who said, I'm going to teach you about Jesus, and I'm going to teach you to teach other people about Jesus. I'm sure the sermon that day wasn't the world's greatest, because he hadn't had even a chance to go over it, even if he was a great speaker, right? But he did it. And each grandchild talked about the influence of their grandfather on their lives. So what I would say to each of us, if you didn't have a wonderful grandfather or father, I understand, and I'm so sorry, but this is what I would say. I want you to be that kind of influence for your children and grandchildren. And if you say, I don't have those, for your nephews and nieces, I don't have those, then for whatever young people you know, you be a positive influence and somehow help them. Help during our LTC, Leadership Training for Christ, or other programs, or teaching classes, whatever it may be. You be that kind of influence to mentor young men and women so that they know Jesus and they know the Bible. There have been so many different statistics that have been given about people who have walked away, younger generations that have walked away from faith. There's some good signs right now that maybe people are coming back. But there have been so many statistics about people who walked away. That is partially on us. Because some of us, while we taught and our children walked away, others of us did not teach, and our children walked away because we were not teaching. And so it's on us that somehow, while I may be able to make up for it with my kids or my grandkids, I can help someone else. So he says, we are the influencers of the world. So whatever is your location in life, lead others by doing right. Whatever is your location, whatever is your vocation, whatever is your vacation, whatever it is, do right and lead other people in doing right. We want to lead people the right direction. Now understand this. We may lead toward right and people choose wrong, but it is still our responsibility to choose right and to lead right, even when people choose not to follow. I think about this passage that's about to be on your screen in 1 Timothy. Paul is an old preacher, and he is writing to a young preacher by the name of Timothy. And this is what he says in chapter 4, verse 12. Don't let anyone despise your youth, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Now you notice that part, don't let anybody despise your youth. Timothy is about to be this young preacher who is going to be talking to an audience that is going to include people that are older than he is sometimes. He says, that's okay. You just be an example to people. So I'm not talking today about just being an example to people who are younger than you are, although that is a good place to start. I'm talking about being an example to everybody, no matter what age they may be and whatever age you are. It is about being an example of what Jesus would want and what Jesus wants us to be. Now, we all make mistakes. We all do things wrong. But when I start thinking about the influencer categories, again, about having quiet confidence, I want to have quiet confidence whenever I talk to younger folks about my faith. I want to talk about the parts I maybe understand or know. I want to have a relaxing voice. And you say, oh, David, you do. You put me to sleep every Sunday. I know, right? But I don't want to be in people's faces. I want to be somehow in a way to teach in a way that they're willing to hear, and I want to be authentic. And if I'm authentic, then I'm not going to pretend that I get everything right. Because if I'm telling people I get everything right, I am the fool in the room. Because they all know I don't get it right. You all could write books about what I don't get right. So it's about being authentic with people and saying, look, this is who we are, this is who we want to be. And it's about that consistent presence in people's lives. I'm not going to be able to do much with someone on an airplane. If I just see them for 5 minutes, we never see each other again. But boy, there are people in my life, I have neighbors and I have friends and others that I just keep seeing over and over and over again. And I want to be consistent in their lives, somehow showing Jesus. I'm not probably ever going to preach a sermon to them, but I do want them to know about Jesus, and I want them to hear about what Jesus has done for me, praying that someday they will know him as well. So, here are some other things that influence. Do you know what influences someone? I want you to hear these things. You might have heard these words or similar words before. Loving people who are good, and you love people who are bad, and you love people who are seemingly unlovable. That will influence the world right there. Now, if you just love the people that love you, probably not. After all, Jesus also says in that famous sermon, if you only love the people who are easy to love, basically what he's saying, then you're just like a pagan. Everybody does that. But when you start loving people that you don't like and you don't agree with and you don't see the world the same, the world starts changing. Why are you being kind to me? Why do you care about me? You know that we don't have anything in common. You know that we look different, we act different, whatever it is. Or if you're just flat, completely unlovable, and you still show grace toward people like that, you will change the world. But if all we ever do is love people who live and act like us, the world will continue to be more and more fragmented. That's the course. We are the ones that change that. It is upon us as Jesus followers. We are the ones that change that when we love people that maybe are different than we are. It is leading people in service by helping anyone in need. We help whoever it is that's in need. Maybe sometimes helping hurts, and so we find the right way to help someone. Maybe it's not giving money, maybe it is. Maybe it's just listening to someone as they tell a story, or they cry as they tell a story, or they laugh as they tell a story. Maybe it's having someone over to your house or inviting them to a restaurant. Maybe it's just sitting down with someone watching their kids. Whatever it may be, we lead people in service by helping anyone in need. Not just those that we like, but anyone in need. And then we live authentically like Jesus and for Jesus. Living authentically, as we talked about just a minute ago. I want to look like Jesus. I want to be like Jesus. And boy, do I mess up sometimes. But I always want to say, I have messed up, but I am coming back. I'm right here. I want to be with you. I want to do what Jesus did. I should not have said what I said. I should not have done what I did. But I want to love and live like Him, and I want to lead people like Jesus. You know those terms, those words. So here's my word for us today, my question for us today. What kind of influence am I? If you find out that you're the person that everyone comes to whenever they're in need, well, you're being quite an influence because you have influenced people to want to talk to you. That's a good thing. But if it's, you're always the one that they come to when they have the bad joke, or you're always the one they come to when they just want to be nasty, you're an interesting influence, aren't you? Maybe not exactly like Jesus would want us to be. What kind of influence am I? You know, there's an old illustration. You all know it. Most of you do, at least. The old thing about are you a thermometer or a thermostat? And you may remember this, that if you are what a thermometer does, a thermometer tells you what the temperature is in the room. Like the thermometer, it's 74 degrees in the room. That's all it tells you, what the temperature is. A thermostat changes the temperature in the room, makes it hotter or colder. So many Christians are thermometers when it comes to society, and they just want to follow society with whatever society is, and often based on what ungodly people say or do, and I want to be like that. That will not change the world, because I will look like and act like everyone else. But if I am the thermostat with my friends, my community, with people in my congregation, in my small group or Bible class, then that changes everything. Because I want to be a positive influence. I want people to think about Jesus. I want people to think about what is best. How can we help other people? That changes the world. If you are concerned about the world, be a thermostat for Jesus. He has already done everything He needs to do to change the world. And now He's asking us to participate in what he has prepared for us and what He has prepared for other people if they will just follow and accept. This morning, maybe you are ready to be baptized into Jesus. We haven't talked much about that today, but you might be ready because you've been studying the Bible with someone. Someone's been talking to you, as you heard two of our young women baptized yesterday. How beautiful is that? And you're ready to have your sins forgiven, ready to receive the gift of the Holy Spirit, ready to be a part of Jesus. You can be baptized today. And if you just need prayer, And prayer is not a just, but we say it that way sometimes. If you're in a place, maybe you have big decisions coming up. Maybe you're worried about health. And maybe there's sin that feels like it's attacking you. And you're having trouble getting through it or over it. You can come forward and we'll pray for you, or you can write to us at prayer@mcoc.org. Come this morning as we stand and sing.